paid leave is coming to Minnesota. Caregivers shouldn't have to choose between a paycheck and taking care of themselves or a loved one. So starting in 2026, Minnesota's new paid family and medical leave program will be here to help. So when you need time off to take care of family, you get part of your pay and your job will be there when you return. AARP Minnesota championed this change, and now they want to help you prepare. Learn more at aarp.org/MN paid leave. This ad has been paid for by AARP.
You're listening to In Sickness, a caregiving podcast from the Negative Space with Allison Breininger and Justin Bima.
Good morning, Justin.
Good morning, Allison. Today we have with us Cathy McLeer, State Director for AARP Minnesota. Cathy, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Oh, I'm so privileged to be with you both this morning. Thanks.
Good. So, Cathy, you're with AARP, which we know stands for American Association of Retired Persons. And for some of us, retirement seems like a long way off, which may make us think that this organization is not for us, doesn't have anything to offer us. Can you give us an overview of what AARP is and does, and who actually is it for, and who uses its resources?
Yeah, well, I would like to say that AARP is for everyone, actually. Many years ago, we did change our name from the American Association for Retired Persons to just AARP because we know that many of the people that we serve, many of our members who are 50 plus, are not retired, that many of them are working well into their later years. And if you've seen any of our ads recently, you probably heard something along the lines of the younger you are, the more you need AARP. And I think certainly when it comes to what we're going to be talking about today, which is caregiving, which you talk about all the time, that it doesn't matter what age you are, there's a very good chance that you either are a caregiver, you have been a caregiver, you will be a caregiver, or you're going to need a caregiver someday.
Yeah.
So just a little bit more about AARP. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. So what that means is that we work on issues. We don't fight for parties or endorse candidates or support candidates in any way, shape, or form. We work on the issues that are most important to our members and those who are 50 plus and their families. So our mission is really to help equip people, give them tools, resources, information to choose how they live as they age. And we're all aging. And so we all want those choices as we move through life.
And you're here through the state of Minnesota, but is AARP in all the states, or where, because we also have some international listeners, is it only for the folks in the U.S., or what is the reach of AARP?
Yeah, so we are a nationwide organization. We have offices in all 50 states, including our 3 territories in Washington, D.C. And we do a little bit of international work, but largely we are, a United States enterprise.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to be 50 in order to join. You can be 18 and join. And in fact, we know a lot of younger folks do join, primarily for some of the discounts and different things that we offer. But really, I think the biggest thing that AARP has to offer anyone who's a member or not a member are our resources, our information, our tools that help people plan for retirement, plan for caregiving, create financial security in their life, and achieve health security in their life as well.
Great. So, but there really are international folks could access some of those things on your website as well,
Certainly.
right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, great. So in recent years, I have seen AARP really sharpen their focus on caregivers. And obviously that's my focus. And so maybe I'm seeing it more, but it feels like it has ramped up in your organization. And so we're so grateful for that every time we see anyone shining light on caregiving. But what is it that kind of ignited that change? Why are caregivers an important population for AARP?
Yeah, well, as I just said, and as you both well know, pretty much everyone is impacted by caregiving. Either they are a caregiver, they know someone in their life who is a caregiver, maybe they need a caregiver, or, if you have a spouse, if you have aging parents, there's a very good chance that you will be a caregiver someday. And in fact, what we have come to realize is that so many people are doing caregiving, but they don't know that they're doing it, right?
Yes.
They may be taking a neighbor to their doctor appointments. My parents did this for a long time. They had neighbors that they would take to their doctor appointments or run them to the grocery store. Well, my parents were essentially caregiving for their next door neighbor.
Yes.
So it's not even necessarily a family thing, a blood thing, a marriage thing. There are lots of folks out there who are doing it for their chosen family, for people who are just really important to them, or doing it out of the goodness of their heart. And we know that so many people are facing this across the country. 68 million people are caregivers. In the state of Minnesota. Well over 530,000 family caregivers are doing that on an ongoing basis, but we really think it's closer to 900,000 and more who are doing it at any point in time over a 12-month period. So the prevalence of caregiving is it's increasing as our population is aging, and more of us need just that little bit of help as we age. It's just becoming such an important piece to support those family caregivers. We also know that caregivers really are the backbone of our healthcare system and our long-term care delivery system. So without those caregivers, I don't know where we'd be. And they need support, they need information, and they need resources to help them on their journey so that they can care for their loved ones and they can care for themselves.
Right.
I can't tell you how happy it makes me to hear, because this is what Justin and I preach all the time.
Yeah.
But to hear someone who is in, a great position of power in this state, who understands this and is championing this on our behalf. And so just thank you. It just feels so good to know that you get it, you understand it, and you're out there doing the work for us. So thank you.
Yeah. And the advocacy piece is a big part of it, right?
Sure.
Folks can cobble together their resources and they can kind of put those pieces together day by day, but without real policies that help support those caregivers, it makes our job so much harder. And we want to make aging easier for everyone. And, by passing some of these really important policies, it's not only helping the person who's being cared for, it's helping the person who's doing the caring. It's also helping their financial security. And we can talk about that as we go, that caregiving can be a very big financial challenge for caregivers. And just someone's well-being, right? It takes a lot out of you to be a caregiver. You two know it all too well. And having that support keeps the caregiver healthy, keeps them engaged in the workforce and engaged in society. And it's just, those things are just good for everyone all around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Cathy, one of the things that you have championed is Minnesota's new paid family and medical leave, which goes into effect on January 1st. How does this new benefit work, and what does it mean for caregivers in Minnesota?
Yeah, we worked on this for a long time. In fact, long before I became the state director in 2021, the staff here in AARP Minnesota had been working to pass a paid family leave law. We are one of, I think, 13 states that now offers it. I know Washington offers paid leave, so you're probably very familiar with how it works there in Washington, Justin. And we know that most industrialized countries have some sort of paid leave. And so the fact that the United States doesn't have a nationwide law, we believe that this would go a long way toward supporting family caregivers. So we're very proud of the fact that we were able to pass this in 2023, and it does go into effect January 1st of 2026. So this is, again, a really multi-year effort. AARP didn't do this alone. We worked with a whole coalition, collecting caregiver stories and small businesses to make sure that this was really something that would benefit everyone. we're really proud of our law in Minnesota because it recognizes family beyond that blood marriage connection, right? So it's your chosen family. It's someone who is important to you and who may actually be doing that caregiving work. So it offers up to 12 weeks of paid leave to care for your own health emergency or your own sickness, or 12 weeks to care for a family member, or again, that chosen family, with a max of 20 weeks in a year. It provides partial wage replacement and job protection. Because we know all too often, and I know both of you are probably familiar with this and have your own stories to share, that caregivers often are taking unpaid time off. They're exhausting their own, vacation and paid time off. They're sacrificing their own paychecks and their own financial security. And in many cases, and often it's women. So Justin, I know you're sort of you're a unicorn, the guys that are doing the caregiving out there. But anyone who's doing that caregiving, they're even leaving their jobs and leaving their careers and
100%.
having to either forego that income or even reduce their wages because and then when they get back into the workforce, maybe they're at a lower paid job. And we don't think anyone should have to sacrifice their own financial security in order to care for someone that they love.
Yeah. I think too, I know I have a good friend whose husband has brain cancer, and she just said the other day that she keeps saving up all of her PTO because just waiting for the next shoe to drop. And because there was an emergency originally, she had to use up, and then she didn't have that. And so she's saying now she has all these, so she doesn't take it when she's sick. So I think that's the other thing that I hear from caregivers. I can't take my own PTO for myself to go have a wellness appointment to when I'm not feeling well, because I have to save it for my person.
Right.
And so I think that's a huge piece of this, is for us to be able to use the benefits that are there for us and to have a bigger pile. So when you said something that's been confusing to me as I've been reading about this, you said 12 weeks, but up to 20. Is that because it's a combination of I can use some for myself and some for another person, and that's how it goes from 12 to 20, or what's that gap?
Yes. So it's a max combined of 20 weeks. So if you have your own sickness, maybe you have to have surgery or an extended illness, and you take 12 weeks off and you get back to work, and then maybe, your mother has a hip replacement and you need to spend some time with her, it would allow you to have that time to care for your loved one, even though you already had to care for yourself.
Got it. Okay. And what does it have to be consecutive? Those 12 weeks? Do I have to say I'm taking 12 weeks and it starts here and it ends here? Or can it be, intermittent?
Yeah, so it can total a maximum of 20 weeks per year. It can be taken intermittently. It can be taken over a few hours, or it can be taken over days. And it is it's progressive with its wage replacement. So it provides 55 to 90% of your average weekly wage, with the max benefit being around $1,400 a week. And I think that the really big thing about this as well is the job protection. So you're guaranteed to get your job back.
Sure.
So that you don't have to worry, I'm going to lose my job if I take this time off to care for someone that I love.
Right.
And how do they determine that 55 to 90? Is that per employer, or how do you know what yours will be?
It's based on your income. It's based on your income, so that lower wage earners are receiving more of their wages, and higher wage earners are receiving slightly less.
Okay.
The thing we think is really great for this, and I know it's, there's been some controversy around it, and particularly small businesses are, wondering how they're going to manage this, because the premium is a shared premium. So 0.88% payroll premium that's shared by employers and employees. And some small businesses may qualify for reduced rates. Lots of businesses are wondering, gosh, how can I afford this? Well, the reality is, many employers are doing the right thing. They're giving people time off, and they're paying them, or they're figuring out how to cobble staff together already, right? So this will actually help them continue to do the right thing.
Mm,
We also know that many large employers already offer
sure.
caregiving leave. AARP does. I get 80 hours a year
Hmm.
to care for someone, and I have used it the last 2 years with my
Nice.
parents, my
Yeah.
aging parents, and helping care for them.
Sure.
But many small businesses, haven't been able to offer that.
Sure.
So we really believe that leveling that playing field, making sure that all businesses can offer paid leave for someone when they need to care for a loved one, that will help with recruitment, and it will help with
Mhm.
retention. And really, we think it will help those small businesses retain a
Right.
skilled workforce, because it is very challenging.
Sure.
When you lose somebody,
Yeah.
Mhm.
for on your team, especially, I recognize it. I've got a small team of 8,
Yeah.
and that's. But we want to do the right thing, and we want to make sure that those individuals have the ability to care for their loved ones.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you wonder about, you said you can take it like little hours at a time. So
Yes,
would
it
it
can
be the
be-
kind of thing where if it's like, oh, he's got an appointment today, can I dip into this and use 4 hours?
You should be able to. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Okay.
That's great.
Because I think that too, like if you're doing these little things along the way, as
Right.
opposed to like just like like letting it build
Mhm.
up, then perhaps that will also help both the caregiver and the person they're caring for,
Mhm.
maintain that wellness, as opposed to letting it get to like a
Yeah.
crisis point, at which
Right.
point they might have to leave, right?
Yeah, well, that's a great point. And I want to go back to something you said earlier about, people are saving all of their PTO
Yeah.
and using it, when they, not when they're sick, and
Sure.
only when they're the person they're caring for. Well, that means that those individuals also aren't getting any rest and
Exactly.
recuperation, and they're not
Yes.
taking their vacation, right? I
Yeah.
mean, vacation sounds like a very luxurious thing,
Right.
but if you've ever flown an airplane, they always say put your own oxygen mask on first before
Sure.
you care for before you help someone else. Caregivers need that same care. They need to be able
Right.
to recharge and take care of themselves, because as you have talked about many times on your podcast, caregiver burnout is a real thing. And, if you're using all of your PTO and all of your vacation time for caregiving purposes, there you won't have much left
Right.
in your own tank.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, I think even living in fear, like I could hear this friend of mine living in fear of like, I can't use any of those days
Right.
because what if the tumor comes back? And what if he needs another surgery? And what if I need 3 more weeks off? And so just sort of the relief that a person like that might feel moving through their days, knowing like, hey, I've got this. Like I will be covered
Mhm.
if this emergency happens. Because I think that's a phrase we hear caregivers use all the time is I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're always holding our breath. And
Yeah.
so to know that we have the safety net, is huge, and not to just be sort of cobbling together little bits of our PTO here and there, but to know that we have this if we need it is enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a big deal.
It's a
Mhm.
huge deal.
It is,
I'm
yeah.
so proud to live in Minnesota. Yes. And we'll talk in a minute about other states and
Right.
what if you're listening and you don't, because this friend of mine who I'm mentioning does not live in Minnesota. And so we had asked our listeners if they had any questions for you. And so one that she posed is, what about the other states? So we'll get there in a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So for those in Minnesota, what do they need to do to access these benefits?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is to go online, right? And you're probably going to want to bookmark this. And I know you all have show notes and you offer links to folks. So mn.gov/deed/paid leave. That is the official hub for applications, for calculators. They have multilingual, frequently asked questions. And I know as an employee in Minnesota, I received a notification through our HR department that I had to sign and acknowledge that I understand that Minnesota now offers paid leave and that it is available to me starting January 1st. And so, if you work for an organization that doesn't currently offer paid leave, it might be a great opportunity to talk with your employer, talk with your boss, talk with your supervisor, talk with your HR department. Hey, how is our company handling paid leave? Can you give me more information about it? Because businesses will have that all available as well.
Yeah.
Because every business in the state will have to have it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any situation like if I work in a fast food restaurant, if I'm in a contractor, like, are there like sort of loopholes where like it's not going to apply for someone?
I don't have off the top of my head how it would apply to like an independent contractor or someone
Sure.
who is self-employed. I don't have that at
That
my
would probably
fingertips.
not. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, again, but that's all on the min.gov/d
Right.
paid
Yeah,
leave site,
yeah.
and it will have all of that information to answer all of those questions for
Yeah.
anybody who's wondering.
Yeah, and
Great.
I would encourage people to go look at that now when there's maybe not an emergency, and just kind of get a sense of how it all works, what's involved, what the criteria are, so that when something does happen, it's not a what is available to me, how do I get this, and all of that. You know where to go, you know the steps, or you've talked to your HR department, and I don't know what paperwork you have to file with your company versus the state and all of that, and you're just kind of have some familiarity. I know for someone like me, that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Think about it when we're in a calm moment and not
Exactly.
in the emergency moment. Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
Justin, I would be curious, how familiar are you with Washington's paid leave program and what has to be done there?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. I several years ago actually used it to take 12 weeks off for my own mental health. I was deeply burned out and not doing great, and just needed to take some time to refresh and recharge. And so, like, it was one of those things where I could kind of see, okay, this would be really good for me to take this time off. But looking at, okay, how much vacation time do I have? How much sick time do I have? Trying to do the math on how much time can I afford to take off? How much unpaid time can I afford to take off? Because I was familiar with FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, which is the federal thing that gives you 12 weeks time off to care for yourself or someone else with just a job protection. There's no money associated with that. So I knew I could take the time off, but it was like, okay, how financially can I make this work? And that's stressful to kind of have to think about that. So even though I was not aware at the time of the paid leave, I was like, okay, I need to do this. I need to take care of myself here. And so I, contacted HR to get the paperwork to file for FMLA. And my HR person was like, okay, you also need to apply for this Washington paid leave, because that's going to give you the money. The FMLA guarantees you the time off, and this program will pay you while you're gone. And at that point, I didn't know that existed. And so that was just a huge relief. And I think it was something like, I don't know, it ended up covering something like 80%. And then I could use the sick time / vacation time that I have to top that off to 100%. So basically there was I think it was a website where basically I put in, this is the situation roughly, or kind of the time that I needed to take off. And then I needed to have a letter from a healthcare provider, like certifying that, like, yes, he needs this time, or this is, the plan, and had to do that. And then I think weekly, I had to put in how many hours of it I used, basically. And then from there, work calculated how much they needed to cover for the remainder. So it was a very straightforward, not difficult process. It wasn't this difficult approval process with the state. It was, I think within a day, I got a message back that it was approved. Wow. So, yeah.
Sounds very similar to what will happen in Minnesota. Caregiver leave will require that provider certification of either a serious health condition and the medical necessity of your care. But it can be used, again, for your own serious health condition, caring for a family member with a serious condition, bonding with a new child. I have someone who is just about to have a baby on my team, and she will benefit from this.
Yeah.
So she will be able to use that, and she mapped it out for me, which is I appreciate as an employer, right? She mapped it out on how many hours need to be on her paycheck for paid family medical leave, and how many hours are her parental leave through our organization. So bonding with a new child. And I think, bonding with a new child is amazing, and that's a wonderful thing, and it is great. And I think sometimes that conversation about, child bonding kind of overshadows the other caregivers that
Yes.
might benefit from this. And
Yes.
I hope that folks who are listening, and those who are listening in Minnesota, recognize that this isn't just for bonding with a new
Right.
baby.
Yeah.
While a very, very important thing,
Yes.
this is also for people who are caring for
Mhm.
a spouse
Yeah.
or are caring for an adult
Mhm.
child with disabilities,
Yeah.
or an aging parent,
Mhm.
an aging in-law.
Yeah.
And that's my hope by talking about this today through
Yes.
your podcast, is to make sure that those caregivers understand
Yeah.
this isn't just for people who are caring for a new
Mhm.
baby. It's for
Mhm.
anyone who has to take care of someone that they love.
Yeah. What about the folks, because so many of us as sandwich caregivers and triple-decker sandwich caregivers are caring for multiple people. And so it could be, that I have different appointments for different people in my life throughout the week. Is it the kind of thing where you sign up and you say, like, this is the one situation, or
Yeah,
do you sort
I
of have
don't.
multiple?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that, and I would encourage people to go look at
Yeah,
those
sure.
frequently asked questions on
Okay.
the paid leave site, because they'll get pretty deep,
Yeah.
and certainly check with your employer,
Yeah.
which I
Sure.
think that raises another question or another topic as well. It's great that we have the paid leave, right? But we also do a lot of education and outreach around employer support for caregivers, and sometimes.
AARP does?
Yes, and
Great.
sometimes it's just a matter of having that conversation
Yeah.
with your boss, with your supervisor, with your HR department, to let them know what your situation is. And I think from my perspective, an employer would be much more willing to work with someone if you come to them up front and you say, "Hey, listen, I am having this situation in my family. I might need, and maybe it's not even time off, right? Maybe at the beginning, maybe it's just a little bit of flexibility.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
you know what, could I shift my hours, and could I log in from home at night a couple of nights to pick up what I didn't get done while I took mom to her doctor appointment today?
Exactly.
So while paid leave is a really, really important thing, I think it's also really important that employers know how to support caregivers who are working for them. Because again, almost 3/4 of caregivers are working. They're
Right.
juggling. They're doing that balancing act that you two all know all too well.
Yeah.
100%. And we have done a couple of episodes. We have one with Jessica Guthrie around that. And just because it can be scary, like, what if I tell my employer and then they fire me, or they, legally they're not supposed to, but what if I am sort of penalized by sharing this really hard thing? And so I'm so glad that AARP is, really also educating employers about, like, hey, there's actually a benefit to you to supporting them and giving them that flexibility and giving and letting them share that. And I'm glad you brought up benefits too, because I think that often, when we first get a job, we maybe look at the benefits, but then often we don't check in with those for a while, and we might not think about how they apply to our caregiving life. But there's often so many free things that are in there, or things that are covered for us, that we're just not taking advantage of, that might be supporting, our own mental health or our families. So yeah. I'm so glad, Justin, that you shared your experience, because first of all, that shows that it's another state, but like a billion points to you for you taking it for yourself and for your mental health.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think that that's something that people might not think about as well as, and what we hear, we do biweekly virtual support groups, and caregivers, just the overarching theme of, no matter what the topic is caregivers are so tired.
Yeah.
And so exhausted. And just recently, a number of them have talked about how the caregiving has impacted their own health, and how they've had to find different ways of respite, because, there is a real fear, and there's research around, sometimes the caregiver passes away before the person because their own health is so impacted. And so to know that, I think our caregiver brain often would go to, like, well, I'm going to access this benefit so that I can care for my person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But instead, and in addition to, I'm going to access this benefit for me.
Right.
So that I can have the break that I need, so that I can go to the wellness appointments I need, so that I can get my checkups or whatever. And so, Justin, you have been such a beautiful model for this community of doing that for yourself, and especially around your mental health, to say, like, hey, I need this break. Right. And so, Cathy, just to confirm, mental health is also covered in FMLA or paid?
It should be, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So if a listener lives in a state that we haven't talked about, or that they go and look online and is not a state that provides this benefit, and this conversation helps really motivates them, like, hey, my state needs this. This would be a huge benefit to me and millions of others in my state. What can they do to move the needle towards getting that benefit in their state? Or are there ways in to get involved if they have the time or energy and capacity to do that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways, right? First of all, contact your lawmakers.
Mm-hmm.
Those individuals were elected to represent you at your state house. And if this is something you feel strongly about, I would just go right to your lawmaker and say, hey, and particularly if you have your own caregiving story.
Right.
You two are both just beautiful examples of advocacy around caregiving, advocating for the person you're caring for, advocating for your needs. And that's really what changes in policy stem from, is advocacy.
Right.
So talk to your lawmaker, tell them about your own personal story, bring a friend or a neighbor who's also going through that with you. You know, it sounds scary, but these are people just like you and me.
Right.
They put their shoes on one shoe at a time, one sock at a time. Tell them that it's really important to you. And if they won't listen, find another lawmaker who will, right? You've got representatives, you've got senators, unless you're in Nebraska, then it's unicameral. So start with your lawmakers. And if you're not getting any traction there, then I would reach out to an organization like AARP. If you're caring for an older parent who has Alzheimer's, reach out to the Alzheimer's Association. Reach out to someone in your affinity group. Reach out to your faith community. Many faith communities have been very active in advocating for and promoting paid family leave in their states. I say reach out to anyone who will listen and try to form a little group. Chances are there's someone in your state who has already done some of this legwork and is already trying to get it passed. You just need to find who that is.
Sure.
And AARP may be that group. It may be another group. And sharing your story again. Sharing stories is so important because lawmakers know that I get paid to do this job, right? But when we have a caregiver, like one of our caregivers for Rochester, who came to us and told us, you know what? I exhausted my paid leave. My brothers and sisters exhausted their unpaid leave. We all exhausted our time off. And when the end came, they couldn't be there for their mother when she passed. And hearing stories like that about how difficult it was to be putting your own financial security at risk. And making that choice between, I either go to work today to get my paycheck so I can pay my mortgage, or I go sit with my mother by her bedside when she takes her last breath. Nobody wants to make that choice. And nobody should have to make that choice. But those are the powerful, powerful stories that can change hearts and minds. And if you have a story to tell, don't be shy about that, right? Be proud of the work that you've done to support your loved one, and share that story so that others might benefit.
Sure.
But starting with your lawmaker, starting with an organization that might be working on that, even if it's a lawmaker that's not, even if you didn't vote for that person, or somebody who's in a district next to you, find out who is going to be a champion in your state legislature, and start the conversation and just ask, what do we need to do to make this happen? Because so many people are in my same boat, and so many people are putting their own financial security at risk, and providing this tremendous service. When you look at the numbers, again, in Minnesota, 530,000 family caregivers are doing this on an ongoing basis. They're providing $10 billion in uncompensated care. Where would that care come from?
Right.
Where would that,
Right.
It very well could be tax dollars that would be paying for that. So being able to support those caregivers, everybody looks at the immediate, what's it going to cost now, but you have to look at the tails. You have to look at what's coming down the road and how this could potentially save taxpayer dollars in the future.
Right.
And I think even sharing stories with people in our own communities, because I saw the other day somebody posted about this new law and I was like, I'm going to check out the comments. And, there's people are crabby about everything. Right. And so they were, and I was like, what? I was trying to figure out what was making them crabby.
Yeah.
Right. And clearly they were people who had never been in this situation yet. And I say yet because you've a couple times used the Rosalind Carter quote, right?
Yeah.
About the 4 kinds of people. And so I think that the more that we can put faces to these stories, because there can be someone out there who has never experienced this, who's like, well, the people are going to be gone or whatever it is. But when they say, oh, my neighbor Allison, this is something that would benefit her. Right. So I think even in our informal circles, just sharing like what our reality is and sharing how something like this could or has benefited us can change the minds of other people, so that if it comes up in a vote or something like that, that more community members think of us, the real people, as opposed to just like this, oh, this is a new thing and I don't like it, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and even in some of our education and outreach, our Associate State Director for Advocacy, who does our state policy work, was talking with a business owner who said, I'm not so sure about this. And started the conversation and said, well, do you have anybody who's ever taken leave? Well, yeah. What did you do? Well, I paid them. Okay. Well, this is now basically an insurance policy that will help cover that cost.
Right.
Both the employee and the employer pay for it, but it will provide that funding in order for that business who was doing the right thing, so that it won't be so burdensome on them in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to make a quick plug too for, we have talked a couple times to people from Caring Across Generations. I don't know if you're familiar with that organization, but they're incredible. And so they're also about, if you're a caregiver and you're like, I want to get involved, I want to write a letter, like they help, like how do you write a letter to the editor? How do you talk to your lawmaker? And so that's we've got a couple episodes with folks from there if caregivers are interested in getting involved in
Those
that.
are great resources.
And I just also want to say, caregiver, you're tired. So if you're listening and you're like, oh, now you want me to go meet with my lawmaker, right? There are some folks for whom that feels really energizing and like, I'm out there and I'm helping the cause. And if that's you, wonderful. Right. But if not, just know that there's other amazing people like Cathy who are out here doing this work on your behalf. And we don't want you to add it to your to-do list if it's not something that's going to bring you energy.
Right.
Yeah. And actually, we'll, at the end of each of our episodes, we actually talk to supporters. And so thinking about, and supporters in this case, Cathy, mean, it could be our family and our friends. It could be faith leaders, anybody who's listening to this podcast, who's just doing it because they also just want to know how to better help the caregivers in their lives. And so that's actually one thing. And then I'll open it up to you. But one thing that supporters could be doing, right, is like, I'm the caregiver. I'm tired. I'm not going to go talk to my lawmaker right now. But you, supporter, that's one thing you could do, is you could bring my story to this lawmaker, right? You could, on my behalf, go and try to do some of this legwork. But as you hear this today, Cathy, what are some things that you feel like supporters of caregivers could be doing to help?
Well, you just said it, right? Sharing those stories. So if you know someone who is a caregiver and you are super impressed with the work that they've been doing, or, really understand the challenges that they're encountering, be an advocate for the caregiver, even if you're not the caregiver, right? I used to work in television. It was really complicated to bring a camera out, and you had to have a tape deck and a tripod and everything. Everybody has a tool in their pocket, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has a phone. You could do a quick interview, just record a caregiver about what this would mean to them and share that video with a lawmaker, right?
Sure.
Something that simple can really change hearts and minds again. Getting educated on what caregivers need, right? We just we just put out a report with the National Alliance for Caregiving, Caregiving in the U.S. study, and 30% of caregivers have reported at least one financial hardship or one financial strain from caring for their loved one, right? We know so many people, many caregivers, and I'm sure you too, because you are both in the thick of it. There's lots that isn't covered by insurance, and you're paying out of pocket. My mom is a primary caregiver for my dad, who went into a nursing home this year. I purchased, a bunch of T-shirts with snaps on them from Amazon. I purchased shoelaces that he didn't have to tie.
Right.
We purchased a handrail. Right.
Yes.
I'm not going to make my mom pay for those.
Right.
But we know
those add up so quickly.
They do, and we know that the average caregiver spends, this seems pretty low to me, $7,200 a year out of pocket on providing that care. So if you know of a caregiver who is doing that, ask if they're willing to share their receipts with you, just so that you can take that to a lawmaker and say, hey, you know what? Look at this is what is costing caregivers, and we need to support them any way we can.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful for the updated report, because it's, we always want to have the updated data. So we've been quoting the 2025 report a lot. And, but I also always think these numbers are low. These, because like you said at the beginning, so many of us caregivers are not even, like, if somebody said, are you a caregiver? Oh, no.
Right.
But then you ask more, and then it's like, well, I just took like you said, I just took my neighbor to the doctor, and I just filled my mom's pillbox, and I just went to my kid's IEP meeting. And so, like, the numbers are shocking, and I always think these are very underreported.
Yeah.
These caregivers are not, raising their hand to say this as much. And so, as dire as they are, I think it's actually more dire than the numbers even show.
Yeah, for sure. Because people, they may not identify with that. They may not, they're like, oh, and Justin, I'm sure that people in Washington are the same way. But here in the Midwest, we have this very like, oh no, it's just what I do. It's just what I do.
Just.
But you're being a caregiver, and it is hard work, and it is important work, and we need to do whatever we can to support them.
Yeah.
Well, Cathy, thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with us, for giving us and our listeners information about what this new benefit is for the people in Minnesota, and maybe some information for those who are in other states on how they can access the benefits that exist there, or help move towards having better support for caregivers in their own states. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to add?
Well, I think, not just at the state level, there are things federally that we can do to support family caregivers. So one of the things that AARP has been very active, there's a measure before Congress right now, the Credit for Caring, a working caregiver tax credit, again, to help ease some of those out-of-pocket costs, right? So whether you're buying a ramp for your house, covering the cost of adult daycare. The Credit for Caring Act would create a federal tax credit that would put money back in the pockets of family caregivers. And a number of Minnesota congressional members have signed on. Pete Stauber has signed on. Kelly Morrison has signed on. In the past, Tina Smith has supported. Amy Klobuchar has supported. And we think that this would be a first step, right? It's not going to solve all the problems, but it would make a big difference. And so even on the federal level, there are things that we can do to support family caregivers. Again, just if people can educate themselves, if they need resources or information on how to get started. I know you talk about this a lot, but planning ahead is huge. Don't wait until you're in a crisis to take action. The upcoming holidays are a great time to talk to your loved ones. If you have an older parent or an older relative in your life, it's a tough conversation to have, but it's really important to have so that they have choice in how they're cared for. And that if you ask them what their wants and desires and needs are, you can, as caregivers, we can better provide that for them.
Yeah. And are there additional AARP benefits for caregivers that you haven't mentioned yet that you want to make sure we know about?
Yes, so we have a ton of resources on our website. So aarp.org/caregiving.
Okay.
It's our Caregiver Resource Center. We used to call it Prepare to Care, and they're changing the name of it, but actually a really great tool to kind of walk through all of those questions about if you need a caregiver, if you need to be cared for someday,
Mm-hmm.
how do you want that? What do you want that to look like? How do you want that to play out in your life? Every state across the country also has state-specific caregiver resource guides. So helping people tap into all of the local resources that are available to them. In Minnesota, it's Aging Pathways, used to be the Senior Linkage Line, but that's a great first stop. If you're needing home health care, in-home care, assisted living, or a long-term facility, or just how to navigate some of these things, that's a great place to start. We also do a lot. We know that caregivers are stressed. They may be in a hurry. And when you don't have all cylinders firing at the same time, or you're distracted, that puts you at risk for fraud. And so we want to make sure that we're protecting people from fraud. So our Fraud Watch Network has great resources. And if your community is looking for ways to support family caregivers, to build a stronger community with better housing options, transportation options for those who are aging, we have community grants, and we do a lot of work in the age-friendly community, making communities more livable to make it easier for caregivers and the ones they're caring for to get around, to access care, and to stay engaged in their community. So almost all the work that we do has some sort of tie-in to caregiving, whether it's financial or livable communities. So I would just encourage people to check out what AARP has to offer on all fronts.
Great.
So grateful. Like I said, it just always makes me so happy to know that there's other people out there that are championing this work, that are recognizing all that we do as caregivers. And so thank you for all that you do personally, but all that AARP does. And thank you for the clarification. I have been wondering about this topic, and I want to be well-versed so that I can be supporting others and feel like now I can just point them to this episode. So I'm so grateful that you came here to spell this out for us, and for all that you do for caregivers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, I want to thank you for having me, and I want to thank you both for what you do. It is such an important conversation to have, and just the work that caregivers do. Again, my mother's a caregiver. I'm a caregiver. My brother's a caregiver. It's such important work, and the more we can talk about it and and normalize that conversation, I think the better off we'll be.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, we will put some of the links that you shared with us in the show notes so that people can access those. But thank you so much, Cathy, for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye. You've been listening to In Sickness. Find us online at insickness.care or on Instagram at insicknesspodcast. You can send your questions and comments to hosts@insickness.care. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend or fellow caregiver. Thanks for listening, and take care. You've been listening to In Sickness. Find us online at insickness.care or on Instagram at insicknesspodcast. You can send your questions and comments to hosts@insickness.care. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend or fellow caregiver.